Professor Charles Richet was a French physiologist and pioneer in the study of immunity and allergic reactions. He was rewarded the Nobel Prize in 1913 for his work on anaphylaxis. He was also a successful aviator, novelist and playwright who studied philosophy and paranormal abilities. Professor Richet also investigated physical mediumship for many years, and in 1894 he devised the term ectoplasm to describe the rare physical substance created in the seance room. In this audio, Richet discusses the technicalities of how spirits communicate and how his understanding of the afterlife helped him after death. Charles Richet died in 1935, and the following audio was recorded on August 12, 1968, and the medium was Leslie Flint. This is an edited version. Richet. It's interesting to know from this side the methods of control and what is happening. When I was on your side, I had experience with various mediums, and there were many things which were very puzzling, which I now realize and understand the many difficulties there must be in communication. You have taken on a very responsible position to express this knowledge to people. With your modern machinery, you're able to recapture the voice, the seance, everything as it is originally. It is wonderful to know that you have this machine to play and to give people the identical experience that you have. I am here with many people that you would know, like myself, who are very interested in this subject. We are all interested in your work, knowing that you are doing a great job in spreading this great truth, and by the scientific method of recapturing it on a tape machine. I wish it was so in my day and would have been a great help to us. I was far from being a medium, but I was tremendously interested in this subject. I studied it and I experimented with mediums. The thing I did not understand before is the concentration of my thought which is transmitted to you as thought via the artificial voice box, which reacts and vibrates in your harmonious conditions and gives to you my thoughts of any communicating entity transmitting artificially to you. The fundamental method is always the transmissions of thought into sound artificially. That is what people do not realize in your world. Sometimes they question the intonation or the sound of a voice. They must remember that the voice itself must be artificially created. It cannot be naturally reproduced as it would be in your own sphere with your own physical body. You are not using the same body or vocal organs and not communicating under natural conditions. All communication must be unnatural. We are anxious to communicate, and the methods that we have to employ are not natural. They have to be transmitted artificially to you, and therefore the miracle is that you receive anything. A voice is something which is built up in your world over a long period, and when we reproduce, we must reproduce artificially. It depends on how much we can recapture and remember ourselves. People do not understand this and should make more allowances. It is not what we say, not so much what our voice may sound like, that matters. We built the voice box. The scientist's task is to utilize the ectoplasm drawn from the medium, and sometimes from the sitters that are present. They reproduce from ectoplasm a replica of the vocal organs necessary for speech that is held in an auric condition surrounding the medium. Then we have to enter into the medium's vibration of the auric voice box and have to transmit by thought, and that is automatically reproducing sound in your vibration. All communication, whether it is in your world or from this world, is mental. There is not a single thing that you do that our mind does not make it possible. You lift a finger and your thoughts tell your finger to move. There is a difference between trance mediumship and direct voice, and they must transmit through the medium, and the medium's vocal organs are used. The medium becomes the subject. The instrument is merely under hypnosis. The more deeply entranced, the more hypnotic the power. All mediumships must be under hypnotic influence. We take control of the instrument. The more we can take control of the instrument, the more successful are our contacts. The medium must be prepared to lose his identity completely, to give up himself, that he may be taken over. I am talking here about trance mediumship. There is a vast difference between mental and trance mediumship and direct voice, which, when direct voice is of a high caliber, it is obviously the best because we can bypass and avoid the medium completely. I am more conscious of your thoughts than I am of the sound. I am conscious of the sound. I'm not always conscious of exactly what you are saying. But before you enunciate the word, quite often I can pick it. The most fundamental thing in communication is that all communication is mental, whether it is with human beings or the animal kingdom. Whatever the form of life, there is thought. There is the power to send out. It is the form of telepathy. The more highly concentrated the thoughts of the communicator, the more successful he will be in his communication. Whether it is in transmitting a message or it is in actually being present, to be able to see the people who are in the room and from the point of view of materialization. It all depends on the tremendous thought power of the communicator. The more they are able to concentrate their thoughts, the more dynamic it is, the more solidified it can become by concentration. Concentration of thought is a big factor in successful communication. When I passed over, I was very happy because I knew what had happened to me. I was not a stranger to this knowledge. I knew that I had passed over and that I was content. I was not clinging to any preconceived idea that there would be a life after death, a natural existence, which I found it was. I had no strong religious convictions to hamper me, and everything here was natural. The life in which I found myself was very similar to that which I had experienced on Earth. Our world is like the Earth from the point of view of nature. We have all that you would expect in the way of natural surroundings. We have all the flowers, birds, and all that you would hope for in a new life that would make one happy. When I passed over, I was in a beautiful garden, like a garden that I had known in my youth. I have since discovered that it was almost a replica carried over by the mind. We do not realize what a tremendous effect we have by our thoughts. Man is no more or less than he thinks. If he creates certain thoughts, which are real to him, they are realities. And he will find that he has created certain conditions under which he will exist and live for a time, until he changes his outlook and his thoughts. We are no more or less than we are in thought. There is a difference between what you would call imagination and that which you have helped to create by effort. There are certain illusionary conditions here. A person may be under an illusionary condition and in an illusionary vibration will pass when the illusion passes, when the mentality changes. The realities here are something quite different. Many people go through phases, changes, according to their outlook and their expectation of things, but realities are a different thing. Many of the things here are more real than anything you know on Earth, but many of the things here are created not by thought alone. At the beginning, there is the thought, but effort must come into it. By your effort, you make it possible, and you must be worthy of that which you achieve. Certain things come to you naturally in the first place, but they are not necessarily always permanent. The whole point here is that we can only affect a person according to how much they will allow us to affect them. We cannot force anything. Here everyone has free will, the same as in your world. You may say that it is not always possible to follow your free will, which is true enough on Earth because of circumstances beyond your control and influences of other people. But here, for the first time, your free will come into play. If you wish to listen to something that is being said, then you listen. You are not forced to accept something until you yourself can accept it. Although we may discuss things here, we often go to places and lectures on all scientific things. There are some people who can receive my inspiration and thoughts and accept them, and some people will ask intelligent questions, and some people who will follow out certain things that I may convey to them. But there are others who have not reached that stage of development and they cannot understand and accept. Everything here is a matter of gradual growth. We cannot expect to convince everyone. Everyone here is not on the same strata. Everyone here is not always receptive, even to certain influences and thoughts. It's all evolution, and that's life. It's natural when you're sitting in a circle and you're working as a medium. You get to know a certain number of people, and you become associated with them. You realize the point and the purpose of what you've got to do, and it's very important to you, and you strive and sometimes get disheartened. But you go on. There's thousands of people who work in the background and transmit their messages and their thoughts, and they serve on all levels. What I am most interested in, and the main reason why I come to you, is that I'm very conscious of the doubts that must arise in the minds of people who are beginning to search into this great truth. Though they are anxious for conviction, there are many things which they find impossible to accept, things they do not invariably understand, and they often expect certain things to be given to them without any distortion. They must realize that you cannot hope to obtain the sort of things that you call evidence without some distortion. You may receive so much, but you must remember that whatever we have to convey to you, we must bring it down to a level by which you can understand it and by which you can accept it. People do not realize that there are many complexities, even with people whom you know well, relations and friends whom you love, and who you are anxious to communicate with. You may expect them to say the most obvious things, but the most obvious things are not necessarily the most evidential. You may expect those things and say, if I can receive so-and-so, I will know that was correct and is proof to me. But you say, I knew that. It was in my thoughts. I knew the answer to that problem or that question. And you say, perhaps the medium reads my thoughts. Quite often, communicators from this side will deliberately give you certain information which is not registered in your own mind, things which you do not even know. But if you can prove that to be so, what they've told you is much better evidence because it could not be in your thoughts. But we have to guard against this thought transfer in communication. If we are to bring conviction into your world, we must be able to tell you things of which you have no knowledge and which can be proved afterwards. That's why we often go in for prophecies. We don't prophesy just for the sensationalism of prophecy. We do it for good purpose, to give you conviction that we can see it a little further ahead, which we do know. We are not in time as you are in time. We are outside time. We can see it a little further. We are like a man in a plane. We can see around the corner of the road, but you in the car cannot. It is important for people to realize that all the things we do are for a purpose. We seldom do anything just for the sake of doing it, for something to say. We do everything for the advancement of truth, and in consequence, we work for that end to prove it to you. We're not concerned with material things, which are so important to so many people. The majority of people who go to spiritualists are more concerned with the personal self and material things. We may help you with those things a little, as far as we may, but we're much more concerned with spiritual things, things that are permanent, real, and lasting. When people come to us intelligently and spiritually and work in harmony with us and realize our difficulties and cooperate with us and are patient, nothing is impossible to the power of the Spirit. The majority of people who are supposed to understand this truth are only concerned with self and material things. They expect the spirit world to answer the most mundane problems, which sometimes we do. Not only because we wish to be of help, but because we want to give a kind of evidence. The majority of people who should know better are not concerned with the spiritual fact of this great truth and realities, the things that can be of any real value to the world. We come into your world to show you how to live and to express yourself spiritually and advance far away from the material condition of things. We have a purpose, and when the spiritualists have a purpose, then nothing is impossible between us. But there are far too many who are content with the small things. They are not prepared to go further. We can see the outcome of actions, not only of the individual, but other people who affect the individual and what their thoughts to certain situations will be. We can foresee because of the obvious developments on certain lines. We can see the outcomes of actions, not only of the individual, but other people who affect an individual and what their thoughts will be. We can foresee because of the obvious developments on certain lines.